Good morning, everyone. This is Britt Simon. Thought I'd jump on and do a live with you this morning, take some questions from you on any topic you like. Uh, the great thing about having 10 years of expertise and experience in helping over 100,000 people get their green cards through this program is I don't think there's a question you can ask me that I am not going to know the answer to. If it's a DV lottery question, that is. If it's a question about how to get your dog to stop barking at the postman, I have no idea. My dog is just awful. But anyway, so back to DV lottery. Happy to take any of your questions. Let me just start with the obvious question that I'm going to be asked without a doubt. DV 2020 and DV 2021. Is there any news? No, there's no news. We're just still waiting for the appeal. There's really nothing more that I can say about that. And until the appeal process is finalized, it'll just continue. Okay, so let's take some questions. So what have we got? So that was the good luck case that you're asking about. So, and thanks for, by the way, pointing out it's the good luck case. So not everybody in DV 2021 is protected by the lawsuits in DV 2021. It's a little bit different to DV 2020. Okay. Okay. So do you think all cases will go current in 2024? Absolutely not. It should be obvious. With 140,000 selectees and only 55,000 green cards, it should be absolutely obvious to everybody that not every case number is going to go current. So which numbers are going to go current? Well, which numbers are safer? The lower numbers are safer. The higher numbers are supposed to be more at risk. That's how it's supposed to work, right? So if you've got a high case number in your region, then you're more at risk than someone in your region with a low case number. That's how it's supposed to work. So let me go through and see if I can answer some questions quickly. I see I've got quite a number here. 57K, DV 2024 from Algeria. Just got my study visa for Canada. I don't really know what to do. Should I stay here and wait or go for my interview or go for Canada? Right, so you're not going to be current until probably summer of next year. So I would say live your life. And if moving to Canada is something you want to do, to start studying there. And if it fits within the time period between now and July of next year, let's say, then go ahead and do that. And you could then interview in Montreal. Now, I would say that your chance of processing quickly is probably better in Algeria than it is in Montreal. That's partly because Algeria did an amazing job in DV 2023, right? And your documents and all of your documents are going to be very easily processed in Algeria. There'll be no time delay, and so Algeria is probably better disposed to process your case quickly. Also, Montreal has, in the last couple of years, developed a tendency to delay cases after processing with a form called the DS 5535, which is additional questions that they're trying to do a background check on. So your chance of processing is probably better in Algeria than it is in Canada, but you don't put your whole life on hold because of the DV lottery program, right? You have to make your own decision with the basis of what I just said there. Hope that helps. AS 15,000, what do you think about my friend? I don't know your friend. What do I think about that is probably what you mean. Bassem, your case number, if your case number is AS 15,000, is probably pretty good. That's probably slightly better than the equivalent number in DV 2023. And that number went current, obviously. So you're probably okay. When applying for DV and you're married, are the photos of the children necessary? 100%. Yes, you've got to take the photos of the kids. They have to meet the specification. And same thing it goes for your spouse. You have to have those photos. I've had a scenario before where people have said, well, I didn't enter the photo for my kid because my kid is away in school and I couldn't get a photo. Well, then don't enter the lottery, okay? Because if you enter the lottery and you're selected, and then you're going to go through the whole process expecting to be processed, and you're going to go and pay the fees for the interview and the medical and everything else, only to be disqualified because you didn't take a photo of your kid, then frankly, you're worse off by entering the lottery and winning than if you didn't enter the lottery at all. Do you understand my point? You'll go through a year and a half, 2 years of pain. You'll lose a lot of money, you know, a lot of heartbreak. It's not worth it. Either follow the instructions or don't enter the lottery, right? And if you can't follow the instructions because you can't take the photo of the kids, then you know, then don't enter the lottery. Quite simply, as simple as that. I'm 73K of Abu Dhabi. Is it better to move to Nepal and change my interview location to Nepal? Is it better than Abu Dhabi to have a chance at an interview? Are you Nepalese? Why would you move to Nepal? You know, it's not just like you pick any embassy in the world and just pick it and KCC will move you there. You've got to have a reason to be moved to an embassy. And if you're 73K, you're probably not Nepalese, right? So I don't know what you're talking about. You have to explain a little bit why you would think you're able to move to Nepal for an interview. Does a mistake on the level of education visa interviews when corrected on the DS2? No, doesn't make any difference. If you enter the DV lottery and you pick your education level incorrectly from that list where it says, what's your education level? Is it some high school or, you know, degree or whatever? That question on the DV lottery entry is completely irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference to your application in any way. You can't be disqualified because you picked that question wrong. Okay, picked that answer wrong. It's the only reason that question is there is for statistical analysis. They want to know, out of the 25 million people that enter, what is their rough level of education. That's all they're trying to find out. Okay, so don't worry about that particular question. What does it mean your case is currently at KCC? It means you haven't been scheduled. That's all. That's all that means. Every case is at KCC, right? And if you read the SEAC status, it says so you've seen that at KCC in your DS260, which is a part of the SEAC system. But there's another part of the SEAC system, which is where you'll get the status check. And that data isn't there until January 1 for DV 2024 cases. And once you see that, you'll see the words at NVC, which suggests your file is somehow at NVC. That's complete bullshit. Your file is never at NVC. Your case is more correctly stated as being at KCC. KCC is the department that processes all the DS260s and schedules the interviews to move them to the embassy. Okay, so that's all it means. It just means you haven't been scheduled for interview yet. Lisa says, it's been helpful here with you. My case number is AF5K, great case, from Cameroon, and I have been scheduled for interview next month with my family. What are the exact docs needed? I always hate this particular question of, please give me the list of documents and that sort of thing. I hate it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it shows me that you haven't read the instructions, and that's a worry, right? You should have read the instructions. You're going for interview next month. You should have read the instructions by now. And if you've read the instructions, you know precisely what documents you should need, and you don't need to ask me the documents you should need, right? On the other hand, the other reason I don't like this question is because I don't want to take responsibility, not knowing you, to say what documents you would need. Right? Every case is different. Some people have been through military and therefore will need military service. Some people will ask me about, do I need a police certificate for this country or that country? Well, the rules about police certificates are very, very clear in the instructions, and you can read them. But there is, for example, a case where if you were visiting a country and you were arrested in that country, you're going to need a police certificate for that country, right? And so there are things like that, and I can't possibly know that about each one of you, right? So I prefer that you guys or girls all read the instructions and form your own opinion about what what documents are needed in your particular case. That's why I don't make a list anyway. Okay, and I've been holding that position for 10 years. I've never made a list of documents that every case should have because they're different in every case. Okay. AF57K, when do you anticipate someone can receive the 2NL? For that number, that's probably going to be spring or summer of next year. It will partly depend on the embassy. It'll partly depend on the country. There could be a country exception. So, but it's going to be in that sort of range. I do believe that that sort of case number is in a fairly safe range to go current. But again, if you're at the wrong embassy, that could be a problem, right? For the middle name, do I enter the whole names between first and last, or just a single name? If we're talking about the DV lottery entry, enter all the names if you can. So if your name is Elvis Presley, but you've got 3 names in the middle, then all 3 of those middle names should be in the middle name field, right? Elvis would be your first name, Presley is your last name or surname or family name. That's what that field is. And then the middle name section has all the other names that you have, right? So, but it depends on space. Sometimes people have got more names than the space allows. So then you have to shorten something. Okay. What do you have to say about USA Embassy located in Rio de Janeiro? Rio actually did pretty well. Last couple of years, there were a number of people that actually moved and their cases there were able to get processed in Rio when other embassies were not processing. So they're fine. But again, you have to have a good reason to be there. Like, are you already living in Rio? Then Rio is a good place to interview. If you're living in Cameroon or something, or Johannesburg, and you want to pick Rio, you've got no reason to pick Rio. That's not going to work. Okay, you have to have a reason to pick Rio. You have to be there, really. We wait for how long, and what is the judiciary is waiting for? Let's say you're probably talking about DV 2020. You're waiting for the appeal court judges. That we've discussed that many times, including at the beginning of this video. Okay, Simon, if the host has to fill in the I-134 form on my behalf as a beneficiary, is there any problem? There's no problem with that. So, let's see how I can explain this one. In some cases, in some countries, in some interviews, and in some scenarios, you will be asked about financial documents. You'll be asked to show either that you have enough money to support yourself when you get to the USA, or that you've got someone who's willing to help you. And the help can be by sometimes a host, someone that's going to help you by giving you low-cost housing and helping you find a job or something. Perhaps it's a family member. But a way to formalize that help is by filling in an I-134, right, which is an affidavit of support. That document is a powerful document and it's highly considered by consular officers as being good evidence that you've got someone to support you. However, I don't want anyone to pay some stranger to fill in that I-134. That's fraudulent for a start. There is a YouTuber that's arranging that, and she's involving herself in fraud. And so don't do that, right? Because an I-134 filled in by a stranger has no credibility at all. If the consular officer finds out that you've gone through a third party to arrange to get an I-134, and that person has just filled in an I-134 saying they know you and they're going to support you financially, then several things will happen. Number one, you're going to lose your visa. Number two, the person who filled in the I-134 is probably going to get in trouble because they've just committed fraud. And number three, I hope the person, the intermediary who's arranged that, I hope that person gets in trouble too. But the most important thing is you lose your chance straight away, right? So don't fill in that form unless you actually know the person that's filling in that form. They should be a family member or a friend or a friend of a friend. There has to be some sort of connection, a real connection between you. Not that you've paid $500 or whatever to fill in this form, right? So now, not all cases will need an I-134. I think there's only one embassy that is actually stating they want the I-134 in all cases prior to the interview, which is Sri Lanka, I believe. It's part of their instructions. But the I-134 is potentially going to be required in any case. It could be at any embassy in any particular case. It should be taken on a case-by-case basis by the consular officers. I was asked by another YouTuber called Sedi, who is from Radio GB. She's a beautiful woman and an excellent YouTuber. She's building quite a channel. And she's mainly Persian Farsi language, I believe. But anyway, she contacted me yesterday talking about this inconsistency for Iranians, which is that Abu Dhabi recently had a talk with the consular type interview that they published on their Facebook page and Instagram or something. And they talked about the fact that an I-134 is not needed. No longer needed or not needed. Now, Abu Dhabi shouldn't be saying that. There are cases when they should be asking for an I-134. It's not that there has been any official decision to no longer use that form. And in fact, if you read the DV lottery instructions for DV 2025 or 24 or 23 or any of them, you'll see there's a question at the end of the FAQ section. I think it's usually question number 37 or 38 that talks about the need to prove your financial ability to stay in America. And sometimes the question is worded to list the I-134 as being one of the ways that you can show that you'll be okay, right? So the Abu Dhabi embassy was incorrect in their position, in my opinion. However, it is up to each embassy to establish its own rules about when they expect the I-134, etc., and how they will satisfy that part of the law. But the law hasn't changed, and so a little bit concerned how they've taken that position. And the other two embassies that frequently deal with Iranian cases have not taken such a position. So it's created an imbalance for Iranians between one embassy and two other embassies where the treatment about the I-134 will be different. That's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So there you go. So anyway, is there any problem in a host filling in an I-134? No problem with that. That's fine. Good to see you again. Your videos are really helpful. Just want to know 2024 AS2800. What numbers are current to this date? Do you think I have a chance? Obviously, this falls into almost too ridiculous to answer. You're giving me your case number, which is an incredibly low case number, and common sense should have told you that there's nothing, there's no point in asking me. It's like showing me a red pencil and saying, is this pencil red to you? Of course it's red to me. Like, it's obvious, right? And so we're an AS2800. I'm sorry, but you just didn't even need to ask, right? Based on the case number. Now, I know nothing else about your case, so I can't tell you whether there's any chance for any other aspect of your case, right? So it really is kind of unfortunate you answered the question, really. Hi, Simon. Question about case density. Why is it always higher in the early numbers? Is there a mathematical reason? I think you mean mathematical, right? Yeah, there is. So it's a little bit complex to explain, but basically the three large regions have a higher case density in the early range of numbers because the case, let's take Africa. We're just going to assume Africa, right? The cases between 1 and 1,000 will have a certain number of cases disqualified and holes were created during the draw process. And so that number will be the same between 1 and 1,000. As we go through the ranges, at some point, there'll be other holes created by countries that have reached the maximum number of selectees for that year, right? So let's take, who should we take? Let's take Egypt, right? I'm just going to make an assumption. Let's say there are 10 million entries for Africa in DV 2024. Let's just say there were 10 million. I'm sure there are actually probably more than that, but let's say there were 10 million. If 2 million of those entries come from one country, let's say Egypt, and this isn't the case, but if 2 million came from Egypt, then every fifth case would be an Egyptian case, right? And so then at some point there would be 5 times more Egyptians than any other country, right? If no other country behaved like that, if there was a normal amount of entries from every other country. I'm just trying to sort of create an illustration. And so at some point there would be so many Egyptians that they can't possibly all get visas, and the government says, okay, we're not good. Next time we draw an Egyptian, we're going to disqualify that case straight away. We're going to create a hole from that case. And so at some point, you'll see a drop of 20% of the cases because 20% of the entries were from Egypt, and you'll see a 20% drop. That increases the number of holes from that case number forward, and therefore the density of the cases decreases, right? So the early number ranges don't have any countries limited yet, but as countries are limited due to extreme numbers of entries for those countries, then you'll begin to see countries cut off, and you'll notice that in some cases, all of the applicants for a high volume country are all in the lower case numbers. This is most clear in the Asia region for Nepal and Iran. In DV 2023, for example, there were no Iranian cases after about 14,500, I think it was the number, and there were no Nepalese cases after about 21,000. And it's because that's the point that those two countries hit the maximum number of selectees that the government wanted to allow in that year, in order to say, look, we've just got too many Iranians now, too many Nepalese now. There's no point in continuing to select them. There's no point in having 10,000 Nepal selectees, right? We'll limit that to 4,000, whatever number they picked. Okay, so that's the process by which the density decreases in later numbers. I've created videos that explain that in more detail. I've got a blog article, I've got videos that create that. So you can look at my blog and look for entries such as the holes theory blog article that I wrote years ago. It still stands today. The logic of it still stands today, even though the article itself is probably 6 years old or something, 5 years old. Okay, what do you think about Oman embassy for Iranian? It's fine. I think you've asked me this question actually, Mohammed. So it's fine. Iranians always have a difficult time, right? Because your country is uncooperative with America, and says things like death to Americans and that sort of thing, and won't cooperate, won't give us any of the information we need in order to properly background check you. So what that means for Iranians is Iranians will take a long time of background processing before they're scheduled for interview in some cases, and then they'll go for interview and then sometimes have long delays after. And sometimes those delays are so long that they run out of time. So the Iranians have a difficult time in this process. You really need to get interviewed before about, sort of April or May, If you're interviewed after that time, you start to run out of time to get background checked before the end of the year. It's not impossible to get an Iranian case through that's interviewed in July, August, September, but it's harder, much harder, and more likely to fail. Okay, but Aman, is probably fine, right? Thanks for your help. I was case 60K in DV 2023, Dar es Salaam. Got visa. That's awesome. And I was helpful, apparently. I'm glad about that, Charles. Congratulations. Is there any news for DV 2024 Asia? By the way, case number is 23X. Am I need to worry about it? You'll know more about your case number. Is it Shin? You'll know more in January. On January 1, January the 1st, we will have the SEAC data. And that will tell us lots of things. We'll have the case density throughout the whole number range. We'll know the maximum case number. We'll be able to see where certain countries sort of cut off, etc. So we'll know more then. Even then, you won't be 100% certain. You can only have a more educated guess. But I suggest you wait until then. And certainly, you're not going to be current before January 1. So, there's no harm in waiting. You just have to be patient. Okay. Kenya, Nairobi, AF 16,000. Should I transfer my case or wait until January? Your case number is very low. So no, you shouldn't be transferring your case. If you look at the performance of DV 2023 for Nairobi, you'll see that low case numbers had a chance. Okay. So as long as you submitted your DS260 early, you can reasonably expect that Nairobi will schedule your interview because you're going to be current in probably the next visa bulletin. So I would hang in there and just wait for Nairobi. No matter how badly they perform, it's unlikely they're going to perform badly enough to not see your case number range. Merlin, I can't wait until January, but me and my wife are pretty nervous with our case number, I suppose. EU 30,000. I know the exact info in January, but what do you think? Our embassy is Frankfurt. I want to say wait until January 1, but I understand you're one of these people that, you're probably on Christmas Eve, you're probably shaking every present that's under the tree, right? You're that sort of person. You can't possibly wait until the next day. Let's look at it this way. The case numbers, so there's been an increase in selectees for Europe, right? A fairly big increase, but that was mostly represented by an increase in the maximum case number range, right? So I think the density, let me just pull up the density chart. Let me see. I think the density has gone down in Europe. Let's check that. Case number analysis. Overview. Okay, so let me show you this. Might be helpful to show what I'm looking at and how I'm making this this statement. So present share screen. Okay. So I've shown this data before, and this is not official data. This is just the way that I'm thinking about things, right? So firstly, we've got the regions on the left-hand side here. So the highest case numbers that I believe have been reported reliably, and I think some of the case numbers are going to be higher than this, but these are the ones that I sort of trust. So 122K for Africa, 54K for Asia. I heard of an Asia case at 65,000 yesterday, but it was a third-party report, meaning it was someone saying, my friend has a number of 65,000. I can't trust that. I can't trust that report, but it's possible that that's true. We'll know in January whether that's true or not. For EU, the number is 69,000, right? That's the highest number of a report that I trust, okay? And it could be too high, it could be too low, I don't know. But based on that, and based on the number of selectees, so I also then, if we jump over to this side, I hope you can see this. In DV 2023, there was 40,000 selectees for EU. In DV 2024, there's 50,000. So it's a 25% increase, right? But if you translate that into the number of cases, which is what I've done here in this column I expect there to be 23,000 cases or so, 23,100 cases in EU. So if there are, and the way I got to that number, by the way, is I take that number of selectees, the 50,000 number, I take the derivative rate of EU, which is about 2.1, and I divide that. And so I say, how many cases can there be? Oh, there'll be 23,000 cases, roughly. This is all rough math, right? So, okay, 23,000 cases. If that 69,000 case is correct, then the density, the case density, or case density projection is 33%, meaning 1/3 of the 69,000 cases or case numbers will be actual cases, and 2/3 will be holes. Right? That's what that means. Now that number is lower than the case density in DV 2023, which means long-winded way of sort of getting to the answer here, but that means that your number at EU 30,000 is probably better than EU 30,000 in DV 2023. And EU 30,000 in DV 2023 went current. So you should go current. That's kind of the logic there. Now, it's a bit at risk. That sort of assumption is a bit at risk because we don't know the case density distribution. The distribution is important, right? How many cases are in front of your 30,000 number is not going to be the same number as how many cases are in the second 30,000 after your case number. There's going to be a sort of a decreasing case density thing going on. And so it's not 100% accurate. Well, the way I've shown you there is not 100% accurate, which is why I tell people to wait until January 1. But if you can't possibly wait and you're unable to hold yourself together, Merlin, then you can take some comfort from the math I just showed you. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. All right. Okay. I hope that makes sense. What are your expectations on the upcoming bulletin? I always say I expect there to be an upcoming bulletin. Other than that, I'm not going to make projections. Talk about Abu Dhabi AE performance. Oh, you're forcing me to be. Okay, so let me talk to you about performance and how I look at performance, right? Okay, so what I do is if I want to know performance of a particular embassy, TV charts, I just cleared out. Was Arthesius. I just cleared out my cache, so nothing's cached. Okay, so what I would do to talk about Abu Dhabi is to look at some things here, and Abu Dhabi is the first one here, right? I would look at how they performed in DV 2023, and you can come along to Zarthesius's data, and you can see the performance in terms of how many cases they took in each number range, right? Now, what that tells me is that there are many more cases in the early number range than in the later number ranges for Abu Dhabi. That means that, and by looking at the case numbers as well, I can see that there was a backlog, right? You can see that for Asia, they only got to, the first 6,000 or so with high volume, and then later they had much lower volume. So that suggests there was a backlog. In Africa, a more consistent number ranges, but they only went to about 50,000, whereas the African highest number was 63,500. So again, that suggests there was a backlog. So there is a couple of bits of the evidence there show me that Abu Dhabi didn't complete all of its work in DV 2023. So they could do better, they could do worse in DV 2024, But in DV 2023, they weren't perfect, put it like that. So, that's how I would look at things if I were you. I can see that I wasn't showing you that data, was I? Oh, sorry. I'm going to repeat that a little bit. Here's what I was looking at. I was looking at it, but you weren't looking at it. So here's what I mean about Africa. You can see a consistent performance for Abu Dhabi up to 50,000 or so. Here's what I meant about Asia. You can see that there are more cases scheduled from Asia in the very early ranges up until about 6,000. And then they had a very small number of cases in the later number ranges. That's indicative of a backlog. Africa not getting to the full 63,000 is indicative of a backlog, right? That's what I was referring to. Okay. So there you go. Talked about that. Is 38K a high number for AF Senegal? The countries are relevant. And so what you're really asking is 38K a high number in a range that I've just said is 122,000 at the highest end, right? Is 38K less than 122K? Is it a lot less than 38 than 122K? Yes, of course it is. So it's not a high number, right? Use some common sense on some of these very low numbers. You don't need to ask me about AF 38K, frankly. Okay, visa approved. Family of 3 will be going to the state very soon. But can the DV1 and DV3 take the lead while the spouse DV2 join later? Yes. The only rule on entry is that the principal, who is the DV1, some people who haven't seen the visas yet will be wondering what this DV1, DV2, DV3 is all about. So let me just tell you. When the visas are given, the principal applicant is given a visa class of DV1. The spouse is always given a class of DV2, and the children can be DV3, all of them. So if you have 5 kids, they're all DV3. And it really is about the visa class, the classification, right? If you do adjustment of status, those numbers are a little bit different. They're DV6, 7, and 8, I think. I was DV7, right? Because I was a spouse of a main applicant. All right, so the rule, back to the rule. The rule on entry is that the principal applicant has to enter with or before all of the derivatives, but there's no rule about which derivatives have to enter before the other derivatives, right? So the spouse, the DV2, can't go before the DV1. The DV1 has to be with the spouse or have entered before the spouse. Same thing for the kids. The DV1 has to have entered with the DV3 kids or before them, right? The DV3 and the DV2 can't enter before the DV1 has ever entered for the first time. And we're only talking about the first entry, by the way. Once you've entered and you've become a lawful permanent resident, then each one of those classes is irrelevant now. You're now a lawful permanent resident, as is the spouse, as is the children, and all of them can travel independently of each other. And if, for example, the DV1 and DV2, the husband and wife, if they divorce in the USA, makes no difference. The DV2 is no longer connected to the DV1, right? It makes no difference. Okay. Bishace, another question here. Hopefully this one's better than your last one, right? What about the embassy in London? Is there going to be interviews in the London embassy? Okay, so it wasn't that much better than the last question you asked. Of course there is, and you could have checked that. You could have checked that on the internet. Let me just show you. Okay, so you can go into this page, and you can check for London. Why is that not coming up? There we go. London. Okay, London, United Kingdom. Yeah, it's got cases. It does interviews. London's actually a pretty active embassy. So even though up until this year, up until DV25, British subjects were not, able to enter. The embassy had plenty of Africans there, plenty of people from Asia, plenty of people from other parts of Europe, and so on, that were located in London. So people in London interviewed in London. Not complicated. My country of birth eligibility is Botswana. I am a Pakistani citizen, but I live in Finland. Oh, wow, you're going for the. So you were born in Botswana, you're a Pakistani citizen somehow, but you live in Finland. Okay. What happens if I win the DV lottery? Where will I do my processing? How about I say Paris, just for a giggle? Oh dear. Okay. The country of birth or eligibility is important. That's one important thing. Botswana, that's important. Your citizenship is completely irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference. Where you live is Finland. So Finland is where you will interview, right? That's how it works. You interview wherever you live. Your country of birth determines your country of eligibility, and your citizenship or multiple citizenships mean absolutely nothing in this process. Okay, so but there you go. Case number AF113. What do you think about its progress? That's a very high case number. You're going to be having to wait for a very long time if you go current, and you could go current if I've explained before. Africa is probably the only region that can go current in DV 2024 because of the bad behavior we've seen with African embassies. If enough embassies behave badly and don't schedule their cases, then it ruins the chances of people dedicated to those embassies, attached to those embassies, right? Which is incredibly unfair and wrong, and it shouldn't be like that, but that's the reality. And in that scenario, if 10 or 15 or 20,000 people are attached to bad embassies, then the rest of the people have got a better chance because they just continue, right? So, yeah, your hope, your only hope, is that there are continued bad embassies, right? It's a horrible hope because it means that people who are in front of you will lose their chance so that you can get a chance. So it's kind of sucks, but that could happen. That did happen in DV 2023. Can IOM hinder a case from progressing? Some people are spreading that propaganda. Yeah, so IOM pissed me off actually. They are way too powerful in this process. I don't know why they've got that sort of power, but there are certain countries where IOM handle the medical interviews, and IOM have done things like cancelled the embassy interviews for applicants because an applicant hasn't completed their medical. And there's no way a physician in any country should have that power, right? So who the hell are IOM to be messing around with people's cases? They should not have been authorized to do that. And why the embassies allow that behavior, I don't know. They shouldn't, right? So shame on the embassies for allowing IOM to be that powerful, right? There's no justification for it, and it's wrong, right? IOM, if they're the organization that that do medicals, they should do medicals and then shut the F up. It's got nothing to do with them about when people are scheduled for interview. And simply because they are an organization that control immigration for other types of processes, it's got nothing to do with them about DV lottery. They're just there to do the medical. They're not supposed to be controlling things. So it's unfortunate, but the propaganda you're hearing is true. There are effects of IOM in some countries, thankfully not many countries. And it's been annoying me for years because I've seen them do some really wacky stuff, right? So so there you go. So yeah, the propaganda in that case is true, and it's probably being spread by me more than anyone else because I've been dealing with that crap for 10 years. And there's not many people who spread propaganda that were even aware of DV lottery. I mean, many of these YouTubers are every day. It seems like I come across a new YouTube channel that's spreading nonsense about DV lottery. It's like everybody wants to pretend they're an expert right now. Well, I was doing this 10 years ago, so I'm truly an expert. These other people have no idea, really. So, can an asylum seeker in the USA apply for green card and get AOS? Thank you for your effort. Yes, they can. Asylum seekers have, in the past, got cases through and been approved for adjustment of status. I would say just in the last 2 years or so, there has been an increase in the number of asylum seekers who've been denied in their DV lottery AOS cases. And the reasoning is, is generally, it seems to me, to be connected to whether they're out of status or not is a very big deal, right? You can't apply for adjustment of status if you were out of status for some period of time. Now, I'm not an expert on adjustment of status for DV lottery or adjustment of status in general. I always refer people to a true expert in this, which is a person called Someone's Mum. That's a channel name in an immigration forum, and she is a real expert, right? I know her personally. She is an amazing person and has been helping people through DV lottery for years. And one of her main areas of expertise is on adjustment of status. So I would always refer the questions about adjustment of status to her. But I would say that in general, asylum seekers can do adjustment of status, but they have to be very careful that they've never been out of status. Okay, there's a risk there. Hi, Britt. We are DV 2024 winners. My wife is the main applicant. She had her passport when filling out the DS260, but I didn't. Can I adjust my passport to the embassy? Okay. So generally speaking, you don't. So strictly speaking, you don't need to unlock your DS260 to add your passport number. If you have a medium to high case number you're waiting anyway, then why not unlock? You can unlock. You can do that. It doesn't harm your case to unlock, right? So go ahead and do that if you want to. If you've got a low case number, I wouldn't unlock because you're probably about to be scheduled anyway. So and you can't. You won't be disqualified because you didn't have your passport number in your DS260 from the beginning. That's not a problem, okay? 39K, it's okay number or I have a chance. Okay, an angel was just killed in your name because you gave me a case number without telling me the region. Based on the lettering of your name, I would say you're probably from Eastern Europe or Russia. And so it's probably an EU number, but I don't know for sure. So I'm not going to answer your question. EU 48,000, what do you think? I think yoga is really good for relaxation. I think you mean, what do I think about your number? Okay, well, I think I've explained about how I look at EU numbers just earlier on, so hopefully you watched that. Does the DV application have a specific age limit? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have either a lower or an upper age limit. There are some people who are in their 50s and even 60s who become DV lottery winners. That's okay. Although I would say it's harder for an older person to move to America than it is a younger person. But it is possible to win, and there's no upper age limit. At the lower end, it's unlikely you can meet the requirements if you're younger than about 18. So although there's no actual age limit, there are requirements for educational work experience. That means you've got to probably be about 18 and above in order to be approved, right? So there have been people who've entered the lottery at 16 and 17 and they've won. And because they interviewed quite a bit later, they were able to meet the requirements. But looking at your picture, I think I see some grey beard there. So you're probably more concerned about the upper age limit. And there isn't an upper age limit, okay? Hello, sir. Can I ask you a question? EU 556709. So 55. So there's some stuff going wrong with your number there because you're you're 556,709. I don't think that's really a number. You've probably added a number in there, but I don't need to know the specific number. I just need to know the range, right? So you're in the EU 55K range, perhaps? Do I have a chance to get an interview? I did just cover that for somebody else about EU numbers, right? So go and look at that part of the video. Hi, Britt. I've submitted DS260 on 15th of June, case number, but it still reads completed. Can I do something about it? It reads completed. That's fine. You don't need to do anything about it. Completed means submitted. So that's fine. It's submitted. So you don't need to do anything. All right. There we go. Case number 39K, Europe. There you go. The angel has come back to life. This gentleman asked a few moments ago, and I guessed it was Europe. How many chances do I have? You've got one chance. How much chance? It's not such a bad number, but again, I did just go over the EU number situation just a few moments ago. Sri Lankan Embassy, AS1000 something, but not received email yet. When I received it, I don't know, but keep a lookout for your 2NL. Right? You don't necessarily, by the way, your 2NL. The 2NL is an email. Let me go back to that question. The 2NL is an email, and in the email it says go and look at your ESC page. You've got some updates. You don't actually get anything useful from the email. So please do make sure that you occasionally check for your ESC page, because if you miss the email for some reason, if it goes to your spam folder or something like that, you may have your visa appointment schedule in the ESC page and you've just missed it, right? So so go check that and make sure that you really haven't been scheduled, because your case number is very low. I would have expected, if you submitted your DS260 early enough, I would have expected you to get scheduled by now. Receive lots and lots of love from me here in Nairobi. Many thanks for the God job I'm doing. The God job. I'm not doing a God job. Maybe a good job, but not a God one. But thank you, Felix. I appreciate the sentiment there. Okay, Isaac. On the same question of attaching a photo of a child, what if the child is below 5 months? Can it be attached? Yes. I've explained this before, and in fact, the government explained this. What they do is they say, in order to take a photo of a baby, 5 months or less, 6 months or less, whatever, when a baby's just like doing that, but not moving or anything, you lie the baby down on a white sheet or a white blanket, plain background if you can, lay the baby down, and you turn the camera down, you look at, you stand above the baby, and you take the photo from above the baby, looking down. And babies, sometimes they'll just go to sleep, right? So their eyes are closed, and you need the eyes to be open. So I always say, you make a big boo sound, or some sort of big sound. The baby will open its eyes, take the photo quickly, because about 3 seconds later, that baby's going to cry because you scared it, right? And you say, I'm sorry I scared you, little baby. Britt Simon told me to do so. So you go, boo, and the baby goes, and then goes, wah, right? And so that's how you take a picture of a baby. Just for a few moments, the baby will look okay, will be looking directly at you with its eyes open, because you just scared the crap out of it. Okay, that's how you do it. For DV24, is Nairobi a good embassy? Nairobi is not a good embassy. It hasn't been a good embassy for the last couple of years. I hope they're going to do better in 24, but we don't know yet. I want to transfer to either Nairobi. Transfer to Nairobi. You'd be out of your mind to do that. Or UAE, Abu Dhabi. I'm from Ethiopia, and only until case number is scheduled yet. Right. So you can't just randomly start choosing which embassy you want to be in. You have to actually move to the country in order to be scheduled at that embassy, right? But for goodness sake, don't try and get scheduled in Nairobi. That would be madness, right? You're probably going to be fine in your own embassy. So this is probably a typical case of someone messing around with their case unnecessarily and worrying about what they've heard without just sort of calming the hell down and realizing it's October the 22nd. Like, calm down. We've got a whole year yet. Case number 1200 isn't at risk. Okay, so just calm down, relax, and wait for your own embassy. Stop this messing around with other embassies. I'm married in Egypt, but I also still have a wife in the USA, American citizen. We've not been together since 2008. Will this be considered polygamy? What else could it be considered? You've got 2 legally married wives. How will it not be considered polygamy? Yeah, it's polygamy. The rules on polygamy is that the second marriage is considered to be not legal. if you married your Egyptian wife after your 2008 wedding to your earlier wedding to the American citizen, then that Egyptian marriage is not considered legal within American law. Yeah, someone who's that confused about the law as yourself is probably not going to do very well in this process, I have to say. And because you're married to an American citizen, you really should have taken care of that properly, right? And divorced that American citizen. And yeah. So yes, it's polygamy. That's your question. So, age 17 can fill DV lottery. Yes, I just talked about that. Hi, I'm Emmanuel from Ghana with the case number AF28K. Please, I want to know fast. I could be scheduled, and when. Since I observed that the December scheduling has only increased 7,000. Okay, so when are you going to be current, you're asking? We'll have to wait and see. I should imagine within 2 to 3 months, we'll see much better increase on the case numbers, but I can't be 100% certain. So I'm not predicting, but I do expect kind of an increase in the next visa bulletin. So we'll see. AS 17,000 safe, Colombo Embassy. Yeah, it's probably not too bad. Thanks for all the information and wisdom. You're very welcome. Current situation in the Middle East will affect the performance of the embassies in the coming months. Yeah, thank you for raising this. There is going to be some impacts. Now, right now, today, obviously, there is an impact within Israel for the situation, the security situation. So that's affecting Israelis and anyone at the Jerusalem embassy. Jordan, I believe, has also had a situation where they've closed one of their consulates, not the one that does the DV lottery. It's not Amman. It's I think it's Ardennes or something. But if the situation in Gaza, West Bank, and Israel, if that whole situation gets worse and other countries start getting involved, yeah, there could be more impacts. If there are more as there are more atrocities, frankly, being committed, and many of you will probably not understand the way I feel about the atrocities and who's committing them. But anyway, if there are more atrocities committed, then there could be more anti-US sentiment because of our support for Israel. All right. And in that case, there could be more of a security concern at US embassies, particularly in that region, but really anywhere in the world, right? And so, yes, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit more security concern that could affect other embassies. But please, I hope that the situation gets better, not worse. And, I hope there is a return to some sort of relative calm and peace, but it's not looking good in that region. And other countries are just not going to sit there forever and just let Israel do whatever the hell they want, right? Or let Hamas do whatever the hell they want, or Hezbollah. It's a mess, right? And hopefully that will get sorted out soon. And we'll see. If my child win DV lottery, can I join my child to go together in America? DV lottery winners can't sponsor their parents as part of the DV lottery win. All they can do is they can go to America, stay there 5 years, become an American citizen, and then they can sponsor their parents for a green card, which is at that point very quick, but it takes 5 years to become a citizen. So that's how that works, right? Do you think the application completely improperly, e.g. addresses, and CO increases your chance of being selected? Well, with the DV entry, you have to submit it. You have to complete it completely. There's 15 questions. You have to answer all 15 questions. You can't just ignore them, right? But in the entry, they don't look at the entries and sort of figure out, okay, this person didn't put the full address in there, and so therefore we're not going to pick that entry. It's just a random draw, right? So it's not a question of increasing chances of being selected by filling in the data correctly. It just makes it easier if you are selected that you paid attention and filled in the form properly in the first place, right? Can a student on an F1 visa who worked out of status but got selected for DV AF 49K file 485, I-485 and get a green card? So an F1 visa holder can normally file adjustment of status, but if you broke the terms of your F1 visa, then that's invalid, and therefore you can't adjust status, and it's your own stupid fault if you did that, right? You shouldn't have worked out of status. So no, I wouldn't. I would suggest you don't try and adjust status if that's what you did. Thanks for all. What if you don't have 12 years degree or 2 years of skilled work? Is it strict and you won't be selected? What if spouse has this situation? Can you bring him, her if you win? Okay. The principal selectee must meet the requirements for either education or work experience. It's an either or situation. If you don't meet either of those requirements, you can't be approved. And both you and all of your family will be refused if the principal selectee doesn't meet either one of those requirements, right? So doesn't have the required education or doesn't have the work experience. So yeah, it's strict. Now that varies by country, and so be a little bit careful about that. But yeah, it's strict. But it's not to do with derivatives. They don't care about the derivatives education. If someone has prior use of marijuana but stopped, would it affect their chances? No, not normally. Thanks for all the information. Wisdom AS34K, do you think will be current? We don't know. It's quite a high number, so I don't know. Can an F1 answer that one? Moldova, same guy as earlier. He's now in Moldova. DV24 winner, when is it possible to fill in DV25? Yes. If you are a DV 2024 winner or DV 23, 22, 2020, whatever, doesn't matter, you can fill in DV 25. And you should do it, why not? Got my GC in 22. Haven was unmarried without. Don't know what that means, Scaramanga. Got my green card. One, thank you. You're welcome, Krishna. Congratulations. That's awesome. Case number is AF53K24. Any suggestions when it will be current? Probably spring, summer of next year. We'll see. Hi, Britt. Can my child is an 18-year-old apply on her own and still appear in my application? Is it considered a duplicate? Another great question. So a husband can list a spouse, right? A wife can list a spouse. Most people understand that. There's one application each. But if your children are over 18, if they meet the requirements by themselves, and they're unmarried and under 21, then they can be on your application, but they can also fill in their own application. So that's, and they should do. The only thing is that the child can't list the parents in the same way that the parents can list the child, right? But yeah, the 18-year-old can enter by themselves. So that's good. EU 15,000 Croatians who live in Germany, therefore FRA assigned embassy, Frankfurt assigned embassy in 1NL, DS260 requested ZAG Croatia. Should we expect ZAG or France in 2NL? Okay, you should expect, not France, Frankfurt. They will normally ignore your selection and choose your embassy based on your location. So I don't know why you prefer to be interviewed in Zagreb. Frankfurt's actually a great embassy. They're doing a lot of work. They're doing well. But if you really have a good reason to want to be interviewed in Croatia, I would email and explain that if I were you to KCC before you get current, right? And then if you do that, they may agree, yes, okay, we'll schedule you in Croatia since that's your home country and whatever reason you've got or have given them for that, right? Okay, a couple more questions here, then we'll call it a day, right? So, thank you, Cardinally. My case, AF3000, 2NL letter not provided, chargeability is Ethiopia, Addis. Okay, so you're probably at Ethiopia, right? So be patient, it's coming. Hopefully it will come soon. DV24AF with case number 16,000, location number is Kenya, Nairobi. Is it okay to apply DV25? Yes, it is. Thank you for the update and support. Still interested in working on it. If my host doesn't want to send affidavit of support because they don't want their personal information seen, what do I do? Can I have someone send it, but not my host? Yes, you can have another person send an I-134, and that's fine, right? Your host doesn't necessarily have to be the person that provides an I-134. However, I would say that if you're going to have a host and that person doesn't want to send you an I-134, it's probably an indication that they're not real close to you. If I was sponsoring someone and helping someone who's a friend of mine, I don't care if they see my financial information. Why would I care? They're friends of mine, right? That's the principle that we're talking about here. So if somebody, I always get this question, oh, my host doesn't want to show me, it doesn't want to give me the I-134. They want to send it to the embassy because they're concerned that I would see it. If they're happier that a stranger at the embassy will see their financial information, including their social security number, and they're happier to have that scenario rather than giving the form to you, then they obviously don't give a damn about you, and they don't trust you, and they probably don't know you. And that's a really bad red flag to the consular officer. That's like a obvious red flag to the consular officer. It's like, I can't believe people answer that question, really, because it just shows that the person you say is going to be there to support you is actually not connected to you at all. So there you go. Scaramanga has asked the question more carefully now. Have not moved permanently yet. Was unmarried and childless when I got the green card. Now I have a child and plan to get married. What do I do to bring my family? I travel every 6 months to the US. Okay, I think you've asked this question on my blog, Scaramanga, and I answered that this morning. I answered a very similar question. I think you told me your country as well in that thing. So what I said was that that's an I-130 process you're talking about. You want to get married, you've had a baby, and now you want to get married. You would have to sponsor them via an I-130 process. That's a process I understand, but I'm not an expert in. So I suggested in my response in the blog that you should probably talk to a lawyer about that, an immigration lawyer, to make sure that you've got the best way of bringing the family members. The reason I suggest a lawyer is because that process can take years to go through. And you probably want to be together in America before 5 years' time or something, right? So in that scenario, there may be ways that they can help accelerate it or advice they can give. And so go ahead and talk to a lawyer about that. That's not something I help with. I'm only focused on DV lottery. Okay. Belizean don't usually play the lottery. Belizean is in Central America. Thank you. I know. So how do you increase your chances to get selected? The only way you can increase your chance is by taking a good photo and entering the lottery and answering all the questions correctly. There isn't some trick to this. There isn't, and I know some people say nonsense things about this, but there isn't some trick to it. It's a random selection. So don't make your chances lower by putting in a bad photo or putting in incorrect information in your entry. But as long as you've done an entry for yourself, that's the best you can do. That's the best chance you've got. The reason that that people from your country don't get selected in great numbers, as you pointed out, is because not many of them enter. That's all. Some countries you have a lot of entries, some countries you don't. Okay. Hi again, Simon. Asking for a friend. As a dual citizen, French or Madagascan, is it advisable to apply for the DV as French or Madagascar? Okay. the only place that you were born, there's only one place that you were born. You're not born in two countries. So the fact that you've got dual citizenship has got nothing to do with this process, because this process is to do with the place of birth. So wherever you were born is where you're chargeable to. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to scan down, see if there's an interesting question here. I'm scanning through, so oh, okay. This is an interesting one. What if I make a mistake in my last name in the DV lottery application? In case of being selected, can I get a visa? Yeah, so people sometimes do make genuine mistakes in their DV entry. It might be a spelling mistake of one letter or something like that. And in that case, when you get selected, or if you get selected, you correct that in the DS260. You put the correct information in the DS260, and normally you'll be okay. Sometimes, however, people have made several mistakes in their DV entry, and I'm doing that to show that they are not really mistakes, right? This is what some people do to try and hide the fact that they're making multiple entries. They change their name, they change their address, they change this, they change that, and they think that that's made them, able to enter multiple times. The government's smarter than that. They'll usually pick that up. But if somehow they do make it through, then the consular officer is going to look at that original entry information, and KCC will have pointed out, by the way, that there are a number of differences between the entry and the DS260. And so it's not that there's one little minor error, there's several errors, and those errors combined appear to create the impression that the person was trying to commit some sort of fraud. And in that case, the consular officer may refuse that case, right? So one little mistake, fine, no problem. Two little mistakes, okay, that's probably okay. But big mistakes, multiple mistakes, no, that's not okay. You're probably going to be disqualified for those, right? So, so yeah, hope that helps. All right, everybody, we'll call that a day. Did I unclick that? Yeah, we'll call that a day. Thanks for joining me today. Please do subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up on this video if this video has been helpful to you. So click the bell. The bell apparently is to let you know that I'm going live or I've published a video. So click the little bell and make sure you're advised when I'm going live. All right. Thanks everybody who joined me today. Good luck with your process. If you haven't entered DV 2025 already, go ahead and do that. It's free. Why wouldn't you do that? You've got 2.5 weeks left. Plenty of time. And as you saw from my video that I published yesterday, the time of entry doesn't make any difference. You've got just as much chance if you entered today or tomorrow than if you entered last week. It's the same chance, right? So go ahead and enter the DV 25. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.